So when we came to interpret the theme Rise, there was a lot of discussion about rising to the challenge, and we're like, ugh, cheesy, no thanks. And so when we were thinking about it, we realized one of the early risers in London are the florists. And I worked a few years ago with Covent Garden, new Covent Garden Flower Market, which is in 9 Elms near Battersea. And that flower market provides, I think, 80% of the flowers to all London. And they open at 4 a.m. and they close at 10 a.m. So people get up their stalls ready at 4 a.m. And all of these florists go and get their supplies there. And it was a very, very interesting world to go there super early in the morning before the sun's even up and look at this beautiful arrangements of flowers everywhere. And it's a world that I don't know much about. And so we thought, early, rising early, let's do flowers. And so I thought, who should we invite? And I was like, I know a florist. I know a great florist. Ahmed and I met in 2017, so long, long time ago. And I've been following his work, and it's always beautiful, beautiful pictures of flowers. And I don't know much about the creative process. And so we chatted a bit, and it was like, oh, this is a whole world that I have nothing that I don't know about. So without further ado, I want to introduce Ahmed to the stage.
Okay, thank you so much. Just testing to see if this works. No, I think I'm going backwards. No. Oh, play, that's it. Messed this up already. So press play again. Oh, that's it. I'm going to leave it alone just in case. But yeah, thank you so much for coming today. My name is Ahmed Salman, and I am the Managing Director of Paul Thomas Flowers. We are a small business in London, and we really work with the luxury sector. So we have a lot of services, starting with events. That means, we really have decorated the most amazing parties around the world. We worked with the most, incredible, talented people, and worked in amazing venues, whether it's St. James's Palace, whether it's Windsor Castle. We really have done a vast array of events. And the other service that we do as well is weekly flowers, and we really we were known for providing weekly flowers to incredible institutions in London, whether it's the Ritz London, Sotheby's, Fortnum and Mason, and we also provide weekly flowers to private homes, which is good as well. And we have a range of gifting online. So we have a beautiful web shop with lots of little bouquets to buy. Obviously, with Valentine's Day coming up, very, very important. And really, what I wanted to start off with is just to talk about perhaps the process of how we work. So as Al was saying, we do buy from New Covent Garden Flower Market. By the way, Al, I think I messed this up. I don't know what I've done to it. I might just give that to you. It should work. Fine, I've pressed with it a few times. So we do go to New Covent Garden Flower Market, and we do buy a lot of our flowers and foliage there, and it's really important to support local communities and local suppliers. But actually, we go there sometimes even as early as 2 o'clock, 1:45, 2 a.m. And we buy all our flowers there, and usually, with parties, we have to have several teams, because you have an early morning team to buy the flowers, and you have to have a kind of a later team to install flowers, especially for an event. And you have to have another team to clear the event. So you could, we have, for one event sometimes, you have a team starting at 2 a.m. to buy the flowers, and a team starting at, midday to help get everything made and delivered, and then another team to de-rig everything. So it is quite the process. And and I think it's what really inspires us at Paul Thomas is the English garden, and just to follow nature. With as you know, with creative things and with floristry, there is no right or wrong. Whichever way you want to do it, that's your style, and that's absolutely fine. But for us, we really like to follow nature, and really kind of listen to nature and use seasonal flowers as well, as much as we can. Yeah, I think flowers, a lot of what we do perhaps, which is not too often talked about, is just the kind of schedule and the work ethic that really goes behind what we do. We obviously early starts. Often we're working outside, so part of floristry, even though it shouldn't be, but part of floristry is also Christmas decorations. So, whether it's installing a 25-foot Christmas tree at the Ritz London, or it could be outside as well. And obviously, when it's cold, it's damp, you're working in the dark. There's a lot of heavy lifting, and it's very, very high. It's high pressure, high intensity, and working with a lot of the clients that we work with. There is quite a lot of pressure, to work on budget, to work to a brief, but also be creative and also pay the bills. And, so it is definitely a stressful, challenging job to be a florist. And it was really interesting. I was talking to a marketing manager, Andre, who's over there, and who's new to the industry, and he asked me, he said, "Oh my God," he was just stumped. He was just like, "What have I walked into? Like, how are you guys working so hard? It's just insane." And he asked me, he did say, "Well, like, what brings you joy? Why are you doing it? Why are people doing it?" Because I think that there is a notion that floristry is a happy, jolly industry, and it can be, and I think we are. I mean, we are just scandalous in the studio. The stuff that comes out of our mouth, it's a really informal, happy environment. But I think to answer what brings me, my instant answer to him was, I just do what I do because I do it. Don't ask a priest why you're a priest. It's just, that's my calling and that's what I do, and I kind of shrugged it off. And in preparation for today, I was just thinking that would be quite interesting maybe to delve into this and see how I could answer that. And I thought, I'll bring a lot of flowers with me and do some, show off a little bit and, do a big installation and try and talk. And I thought, but that's nice, it's lovely, and it is a skill, and we work really hard on our craft. But actually, I think to get us through the tough times in the industry, and it's also not just floristry, obviously, retail during Christmas, or whether it's busy period, is just very, very difficult. And to get us through, I think you have to, my answer to that, I think, is in that vase. And you may notice, why do I have a vase of sort of peculiar looking flowers? And these are tuberoses. And make sure before you leave today, you come close and smell them, because they are heavily scented. Driving here today with them in the car, I was, at one point I was like, oh my God, this is just too strong. But they are incredible. And when I smell them, I think of one thing, which is home. So I think of Iraq. And it's really interesting because, in Iraq, where I'm from, when I remember two things about it, which is my mother's cooking, and I remember the garden. And the garden, I don't really remember a huge amount about it. It was a lot of, obviously I remember shapes, but we had the most incredible tuberoses. We had the most incredible roses, orange trees with blossom, and gardenias. So this really heavily scented flowers. And when I first started working as a florist, it was really interesting. I didn't really, I kind of stumbled across it, and I started doing it. And actually, all those aromas and the textures and the feeling of handling a bouquet and being able to I surprised myself that I was even good at it, because growing up in my household, I wasn't even allowed to be creative. A man's role is to be to be perhaps more academic. So I surprised myself, and I think the fact that I was able to do it, and it was almost healing, a healing experience I found working with flowers in my first job. And I think carrying on, throughout the industry, I think you have to have a deep connection to what you do. And so, looking at all this is perhaps impressive, and it's very nice and it's very beautiful, but it's the same, what I find deep within is the same thing that I tell everybody I meet, and even my clients. I have a deep connection to what I do because it brings me closer to perhaps my inner self. I mean, if that's not too cheesy thing to say, but what I say to clients is that, for example, brides, if trying to plan a wedding, is that ignore trends, ignore what you think looks good, and that's something, and that's also something I've learned from the founder of Paul Thomas Flowers, Paul Thomas, and who's still, involved, and I work with, who's an incredible friend and mentor. And that's something I learned from him, is that, ignore what's fashionable. Just go for what you love, what you have a deep connection with, and also what looks good in the room. But ultimately, you have to provide something that is meaningful to you. And I say the same thing to brands. When I go on a sales pitch, when I'm going to on a sales pitch, and they're talking about it needs to be this and it needs to be this, and I say, but what do you want the flowers to say about your brand, about you? Because that's, obviously volume is good, a healthy budget is good, and there are some people who just want to throw money at the situation, and I'm very happy about that too. But I think connection and a love of what it is that you're trying to achieve is really important. And yeah, what else about floristry? Early mornings, hard work, being creative, and I think that the process is somewhat important as well, because sometimes when you're presented with a challenge, sometimes clients have if we're working with international brands, they have a very strict brief, and it's almost like paint by numbers flowers, and often it's we do have some clients that say, we want something that hasn't been done before, hasn't been seen before. What can you recommend? And it's only kind of looking at personal experiences and what's whether it's friends, family, what you see at the flower market, what you see in nature, in the garden. I think then you're able to produce something that it's different, and that is and that is just really beautiful. And yeah, I think that's really, what I have. Yes, and obviously I'll back to you, Al, and any questions I'm happy to answer. Thank you. I've tried to keep it brief because sometimes I just lose track of time and I'll be here for 2 hours. Yeah.
One.
Yes.
Some of these like big installations.
Yes.
What's the budget for that? How much does that cost?
It's anything really from some of the big stuff we work could be a few £100,000 to and we could do something from a couple of £100. But I think it's also, a lot of people don't know that flowers are really expensive. It takes, I don't even start growing flowers. Paul Thomas, the founder, he has the most incredible garden and has always grown flowers. And the stories I hear, is so it's very, with dahlias, you have to, really look after them. And then after they're flowered, sometimes you might have to dig out the bulbs and you have to put them somewhere else because it'll be too cold and they'll die. So it's such a big process, but also logistics and to pay people a fair wage as well. Sometimes a lot of the cost is, we've done a job recently in Scotland, and recently last summer, and just to get a team there and make sure that there's a roof over their head and that they're fed, is also, obviously comes at a high cost as well. But there are a lot of ways, and I think, again, this is where being creative and knowing your craft is really important, because you can use your knowledge to buy cleverly and to deliver impact at a low budget. And that sometimes can be also foliage. Doesn't always have to be flowers. It could be foliage, it could be branches, and it could be maybe just one thing. I think I always recommend, instead of filling the room with 15 mediocre sparse bunches, vases, whatever, just have one that's really nice and something that of meaning, rather than just it looking sort of not very cohesive.
When we were preparing for this event, someone said, "Oh, this is perfect in time for Valentine's Day." I haven't even thought that far in advance.
Yes.
But with that in mind,
Yes.
what advice do you have for someone putting together a bouquet?
To gift?
Yes. Not necessarily for Valentine's Day, but
Okay.
just in general.
Good hand cream. Get yourself, good, because florist hands, no, but honestly, I was just talking to a lady over there and thinking of sort of going back into floristry, and it's just, it's taxing because, I mean, if you're making a small posy, it's fine. It's not very, you don't have to have a huge amount of expertise, but sometimes I think that the hardest part is if you're just doing, let's say, 100 roses by themselves, and it's very heavy. I mean, it could be, I don't know, 15 kilograms, or even heavier, and you have to carry that. You have to spin the thing. You have to wrap it. You're moving around. You're picking up the phone, and taking another order. So I think it's just practice, and gift something that of meaning to you, and not necessarily red roses. And just something that the other person would like and enjoy.
Great. We're going to open up any questions from the audience if you're curious about flowers. We'll go to Michael.
Yeah, hi. I'm quite impressed that it can be that opulent and all of that, and I'm personally very happy. I've got a very large garden, and I prefer them growing. But my question actually is, did you ever came across Ikebana, the
Yes.
the Zen art of flower
Yes.
arrangement? Well, it sounds for me a bit more calmer in arranging than what you just described.
Yes, absolutely, and it's something that actually was quite trendy in the industry for a long time, and we've kind of forgotten about it. Obviously, there's huge respect, and it's an art, Ikebana, and there's a lot of, I mean, in the industry we call it freakebana because it looks like Ikebana, but it's not. But it was
What is
interesting.
it? What is it? I'm not
So
familiar.
Ikebana is, and I hope I'm not wrong, it's Japanese art form using flowers. And I mean, for anywhere around the world or in Europe, every flower has a meaning. So for example, white rose or white lily, peace, rosemary, remembrance. But in Ikebana, they really use all elements to and it could be very simple and very small, but it's really intricate. And one of my clients, Sotheby's, they had a sale for Sotheby's auction house, and they were selling all the belongings of Freddie Mercury, and he loved everything Japanese. And so to decorate the auction house, we had a few vases of Ikebana style, and playing kind of Japanese music, and had blossom and things like that. So it's something that we do use, and actually I think I could do with going on a course as well to learn.
Any other questions? We'll go to Annette first.
Thank you. Firstly, I just want to say thank you so much for painting such a beautiful picture of Iraq, because it's not the Iraq that we see on our screens. And I've yet to meet an Iraqi who doesn't talk about the dates.
Mm-hmm.
But secondly, I really wanted to ask you, it's more about your personal journey, because I mean, I'm sure your parents are very proud of you now, but it must have been quite difficult going against the grain and following your passion.
Mm-hmm.
So can you tell us a bit more about how you did that, what that was like for you?
It was quite natural. I didn't really think about it, and I think I mean, even though I come from a very traditional family, it was very much, do you make money? Yes, great. So it was very much that. But I think I think it's just hard work, and I think they were very supportive. But people change over time as well. But yeah, I think I mean, my family, they love, when I show them pictures, they love what they see, and I think they're very supportive. Yeah, I don't think there was a huge amount of I think it's just the fact that I had a career as something creative is different, because being a traditional family, everyone's very academic, everyone's a doctor, everyone's a scientist, and doing something creative, I think they find interesting. Yeah.
How'd you get into it? How did you get into it to start?
Yeah, so when I was, I think, 14 or 15, I think at school, everybody had to do work experience, and I think it was the last thing I think I had to pick 10 professions that I wanted experience in, and my first option, I think it was something like dentistry, and then the last option was gardening, so they put me in a local florist in London, and and I think it was I think my hours were something like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. But actually, I was there. I was begging to be there from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Because I really loved it, and I think it was to give me purpose as well. I think. Coming from a different background and not having money or speaking the language or having any friends, I think it definitely gave me a purpose and gave me a reason, and gave me a reason to do something different as well and make a living. Great.
Amazing. One more, yeah.
Hi, thank you. I wanted to ask you if there was a time when you didn't really feel creative and couldn't find that creativity and flow, and how did you overcome it to get in tune back with that side of yourself?
Yes, I mean, all the time, really. Especially at a high-paced business like ours. But I think it's important to surround yourself with good people, with creative people, and I mean, as I said, I work with a magician of flowers, founder Paul Thomas, and he's so creative. But even he sometimes is just saying, "Oh, okay, this client wants, so it's the same venue, the same budget, the same colors, the same vases, but it has to look different." But we kind of workshop it together, and I think that's a way to be creative.
I think we've got time for one more. Any last? There's someone.
I know obviously you work to various briefs, etc. But personally, for you, with flowers, obviously you can talk about whether it be the shape or the colour or the texture. So when you're designing, what do you think you see first? Is it texture? Is it shape? Colour?
I think again it's really different, and I remember I was working with a colleague who managed a big job we did at Christie's. I don't know if I can't remember if it's in the pictures here, and it was I think there were another auction house, and they're selling kind of jewels from the Islamic Golden Age, for example. And I was working with our head of events, and she was just saying, what brings to mind when you think of let's say Islamic art, and I just said scent, so that's why we kind of tried to recreate, orange trees and orange blossom and things like that. But it's also, I think, sometimes shapes, you just think, sometimes it's very simple, sometimes a client wants a particular impact, and you just use one flower, but en masse, it creates such impact that it really delivers what the client's after. Hope that answers your question.
Amazing. Any others? I think we can wrap up now. But thank you so much, Ahmed, for your time. Thank you so much. Round of applause.
Thank you so much.